Okay, so here is my writing tool belt that you have seen me wearing in some of the photos. And so I just wanted to show you what I keep inside of here. I do wear this as I walk around the classroom and do writing conferences with my students. And so you can see there's just a lot of little pockets. I got this off of jane.com. But I'm sure you could find one on Etsy or even make your own if you're super crafty. But there's a bunch of pockets, and I love that because there's just so many things I keep in here. I always keep some fresh sharpened pencils, as good erasers, just in case if I'm going around and working with students and their pencils are just dull and broken, and it's just quicker to be like, here, let's trade pencils, instead of being like, okay, go sharpen your pencil and let's waste some time sharpening pencils. So just always try to keep some sharpened pencils in there. Then I do have a little magnifying glass, and the students have these in their writer's toolboxes as well. So I use this to, if I see a student who has a word that is on the word wall, misspelled, I'll just grab this. I'll say, hey, I need for you to take a look. There's a word in your writing that's on the word wall, but you accidentally spelled it incorrectly. So could you use this and see if you can find that word, and then let's fix it up. And so it's just a fun way to kind of find those words that they may have misspelled that's right there on the word wall that should be spelled correctly because it's right in front of them. And then I also have whenever I worked with kindergarten, when I taught kindergarten, I love to keep this KISS stamp in my little tool belt here. And there's no ink on it. It's never had ink on it ever. And it just reminds those little kindergartners, because they're so young and just love cutesy a lot more than first and second grade do even. But at the end of a sentence, if they didn't have a period, I would just hand them this and say, hey, can you make sure you kiss a period at the end of your sentence? So they would just go and put that on top of where that period would go. Then, of course, move it and write it in with the pencil. So just another fun little tool to remember to have that punctuation at the end. Then I have Stretchy the Word Snake. Stretchy Snake is also in the students' toolboxes. This little guy, they came from IKEA several years ago, but you could use just little rubber snakes. But basically this guy, if I am working with a student and they're having a hard time spelling a word, I don't want to be like, okay, well, I'll spell it for you. But I want them to stretch those sounds. So they physically pick him up. I can't use both hands right now because I'm holding my camera, but they would pull his tail and his head as they stretch the sounds in a word to be able to hear all those sounds and write them down. And then another spelling tool that I use are these little chips, which I know we all have from math in our classrooms. You don't even have to have these chips. You could just use anything that's movable like this. And so if a student, especially like with my first, second grade students who may not want to use Stretchy the Word Snake as much, I'm going to put chips out, and you don't want to have the exact amount of the sounds that they're writing, but maybe they're trying to, spell out the word, they're trying to spell out the word writing. And so we're going to push up a chip as we say each sound. W, r, I, t. Oh, ing, we know that chunk, so we're going to push that up. And so it just kind of helps them to then see, okay, these are the sounds I need to write. So w, r, I, t, ing. And of course, if they were younger, like early firsties, you would have a chip for each of those sounds. R, r, I, t, ing. And so they're just moving them as they're saying those sounds to kind of help them spell them out. And then, of course, as they have those chips up there, they're like, okay, good, you said all the sounds. Now let's write it down on your paper. So then they can know that each chip's going to represent a sound that they write down. I have a whole bunch of them in here, so just have a whole handful. You don't know how many you need. Another thing that I keep in my toolbox, because during conference time, we are not publishing. We are working on writing and editing and revising all the time. And so I do keep these tiny markers in there. These are from Dollar Tree. I found them many years ago as well. I have the green one to represent capital letters at the beginning. And so as I'm watching a writer write, I will just take note and be like, hey, you know what? I noticed that you're missing some capital letters at the beginning of sentences. Hand them the marker, and then they go and they literally write it in with the green marker, because it's just our draft. It's not publishing. So we want them understanding that we're going to be marking up, fixing up this writing all throughout the whole time that we're working on a story. Yellow is what I use, especially with kindergartners, if I need for them to trace a word. Early firsties as well, if they're just really frustrated and they're like, oh, I'm not sure how to spell this word, and we've tried stretchy snake, we've tried chips, we've tried so much, and they're just getting frustrated, and you don't want a writer getting frustrated. So I will just help them write the word. I will write in yellow on their writing and then watch them trace over it with their pencil. So it's almost kind of like a highlighter a little bit. And then the red is a lot like the green, except instead of capitals, it stands for punctuation. So again, if I'm with a writer and I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm noticing that you're missing some punctuation at the end of a sentence, use my marker, let's find it, let's add it in there. You want them writing all over those drafts and editing and revising all the time. So I do keep those in there. Of course, you don't have to have little tiny ones. You could have regular sized ones. And then I do also have, there's my little cards for having beginning, middle, and end, making sure my story's in order. There's Mr. Potato Head to remind us of all the details that we need. There's some Play-Doh if you have an apprehensive writer. Be like, remember, we start with nothing, and then we create something. We turn it into something. And then there's my little pictures of my blocks there to have to remember that we have a beginning. Most of our information is in the middle, and then there's the end right there. So there's those little cards. Then I do have 2 share pencils, which are what, as I am walking around doing conferences, I will just hand a pencil to a student. And so those are the 2 students who get to have share time that day whenever all of the rest of the students get to see how their writing is going. So whoever gets those share pencils, they've been tucked away inside my tool belt here. Whoever gets those, it's their day to share. And then I also do have our little blocks right here. And the nice thing about these, if you use these or Legos or whatever, you can of course change how many yellows you have on there depending on the needs of your writer. Got the early writers who may just need to add a little bit more details, and we're going to call that successful. And then those writers that were like, no, we're going to be adding lots and lots and lots of details, stretching out that middle part of our story because you are capable of doing that. So those are the things that are in my my writer's tool belt right there that I wear as I'm doing conferences.